When you hear the phrase money is no object, well, hold on to that thought. It is true until there is a cyber breach. Welcome to another episode of Cyber Alert Podcast, dedicated to keeping you informed on the digital threats that's shaping our world. I am your host, Shervin, and with me is my brilliant co-host, Cybergirl.
Thank you so much. I am so glad to be here. And I think we're going to talk about a serious but important topic that I think not only CEOs or CFOs should know, but I think anybody, whether you have a huge business, a small business, I think this is a very, very important topic, and it's all about money.
And that's true, Cybergirl. The thing what it is that we're going to take two phrases or two words and we're going to join them together. We have the word of cybersecurity, and then we had economics. So we're going to be talking about cyber economics. We're going to be talking about money, the cost of breach to an organization.
Right. So I think we should get started on demystifying what this whole thing is even about. And so starting first, going into what is economics or what is cybersecurity. So we know that cybersecurity is the protection of everything.
That's right.
Whether that's your physical asset or your digital assets, right? But now when we look at economics is the study of how economic factors influence and shape cybersecurity outcomes. So it's about treating cyber risk like any other business risk. And I think a lot of times people don't think it's necessary that we need to focus on cybersecurity and protect our data and our infrastructure. But it asks a simple question. What is the optimal amount of money to spend on security to minimize the total expected cost of cyber incidents?
So, Cybergirl, what it is not just buying the most expensive software, hardware to try to find a way to protect yourself, but what it really is calculating the risk factor within the organization.
So I think it's very important that for businesses, we need to understand at least two crucial things. And the first one is the cost of inaction. So that would be what a breach will cost beyond the immediate fix. Then you look at the return of investment for security. And basically, it's $1 spent on prevention is far cheap than $1 spent on remediation.
That is great. And could you share some additional about that?
Yes. And then it goes into when companies quantify financial risk. So cybersecurity shifts from being an IT cost center to a key business enabler.
So that is some great takeaway. That's some great information. And when we look at it from a executive perspective, and we go back into the boardroom where that persons do not understand how important it is for how to manage the security within an organization. We need a board of directors. We need persons who are an executive as well, need to understand that this whole cyber risk has to be taken serious and it has to be managed from the board level. So the question is, why do you think executives or board of directors are not taking it serious, despite we understand the financial implication, the financial risk to a company?
Right. So there's many different reasons as to why you will see people who are on the board or just people in general not taking cybersecurity serious and actually understanding the expense when it comes to it. The first thing is cost center mentality. So security is seen as an expense and not really an investment. And we know, we can be honest, actually trying to implement certain things if in cybersecurity can be expensive. But though it is expensive, I think it's very important that businesses are able to do these things, because I think it costs more to lose than to actually be able to protect yourself from a cyber attack from happening. And
And one of the things, when you did mention cost center, but I also want to actually place there is also culture. Is a culture within inside an organization as well that actually dictates on how cybersecurity is also implemented within inside the organization.
I do agree with that, because culture is a huge thing. If you as a CEO is saying, I don't care about cybersecurity, don't you think it would trickle down to everyone else inside the business?
That is correct. And I know that there's also other things such as difficulties of quantifying risk. where that it is hard to sell with inside a company because persons, if you cannot quantify it into dollar value, then you will run into problems where that persons don't want to hear, not until the boardroom or executive realize they are going to lose money. And that's the reason why we take these two words and we pair them together to say cybersecurity and economics, cyber economics, because we realize that you can lose money if there is a cyber breach as well.
Exactly. And then also, everyone knows I love myths. I always trying to demystify like cybersecurity myths. That's something I love doing. And one of them is that it won't happen to us. So I'm like, for instance, you'll see that more in small businesses. So you think I'm so small, I don't need, no one is going to attack me, like it's whatever. But don't you think that if you're a small business and you're easy to get at, do you think that a cybersecurity professional will go to multiple small businesses and gather that particular money then to actually go and hit huge businesses who have strong infrastructures with cybersecurity?
That is so true.
Don't you think that they wouldn't deal with that? I mean, personally, me, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and then we're talking about incentive, being able to give executive incentive to be able to manage this kind of risk and all of that. And if they don't, and there is an issue, then there also have to be recourse. Because if you're not managing this cyber risk and something happens, some head has to roll. And I think that the heads have to roll from the top, straight from the board, all the way down, because the board actually set the practice. They are the governance. They are the governance from the company, and then the management are actually just action what the board has already set. And if the board is not taking it serious, then some head has to roll when you're looking at cyber risk.
And I want to add too, all those cybersecurity awareness trainings, please do them. Even no matter what company you're in, I think that a lot of times you'll see with companies, you will send out cybersecurity awareness trainings, and then like members like in that particular company is not willing to actually do the cybersecurity awareness training. So those things are important, and that sets a precedence to how is cybersecurity serious within your enterprise? Are you literally taking that time and understanding that the cybersecurity is important, just like everything else is important?
And this is the time when I will take and tell you about a cybersecurity tip where it says that debt clickers. Watch out for the debt clickers. They are employees who will at will click on anything and everything, and they will stand before you and say they have never touched anything. So you have to watch out to be able to manage that. But if you're not manage that, as Cybergirl mentioned, through security awareness training and allowing them to understand what is expected of them and what they should not do, then you would not have you wouldn't be looking to have these kind of breaches, these issues and all of that. But again, Cybergirl, what I want to do is take it to another level. We need to start looking at the cost of these things. So what we're going to look at is the staggering cost for cyber breaches between 2020 and 2025. So Cybergirl, what I want to do is take it to another stage, another phase. We're going to take these cyber breaches and turn them into real value so that persons can see and organizations can know. So what we're going to look at the staggering cost of cyber breaches between 2020 and 2025. So you have some statistics that has happened inside cyber breach.
Yeah, so let's get into the numbers. I think it's very important so people can understand. I think, like you said earlier, people wouldn't know until they start losing money. So let's start talking the numbers. So when we look at it, the financial cost of cybercrime is actually staggering, and global cybercrime costs are projected to reach 10.5 trillion annually by 2025.
Wow.
Which is a lot. If you think about it, it is a lot.
And we're in 2025 now, so we know that has shoot straight up.
Exactly, yeah.
So when we look at the figure alone, it is terrifying to see these kind of figures. You see 10 trillion is not even million anymore. Right? It used to be thousands, used to hundreds, thousands. Now we're seeing trillions and trillions of dollars. So what about individual company costs? Do we give some example of what individual company would have suffered between 2020 to 2025, which 2020 was the time of COVID. And we know a lot of stuff happened where persons were remote and persons were doing things and all of that, and company had to open up. But what we want to do is also bring it closer to home to our region, the Caribbean region, where that we continue to see these things unfolding within inside our region. So do you have some sort of statistic that let us know exactly what is happening in the Caribbean region?
Yeah, so I love when we talk about digital transformation within our Caribbean, because a lot of times we're not up there, but we have been using a lot of things like artificial intelligence and so much more. And you know, there are people who are actually promoting like people and businesses and just everyone in general in the Caribbean to go digital. And we know that when you go digital, more information, cyber attacks.
Right.
So we want to look at the regional economic cost or loss. So the Caribbean loses an estimate 90 billion annually to cybercrime, according to the World Bank data cited by regional ministers. Then when you look at the cost per incident, the average cost of a breach in the Latin American and the Caribbean region was about 2.09 million. And this is according to IBM Security 2022.
Wow.
And then we look at the attack volume. So the region faced 137 billion attempt cyber attacks in the first half of 2022 alone.
Wow.
And we see that based on Fortinet, they actually put that number out. And then the Bahamas vulnerability, and this is where we need to get really in, is nearly 70% of Bahamian board members only somewhat understood their organization's cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And this is by the PwC Caribbean Corporate Governance Survey in 2022.
So we hear that there is a staggering loss pertaining to cybersecurity, even inside our region, even in our country.
Yeah. And
it seems that we are not taking it serious. We are looking at the fact that, that's some other country, that's some other region, that is someone. In fact, I received a text just yesterday. And when receiving that text, someone said to me, can you help me? It was someone someone who I knew and who I've had conversation with. And I said that, wanted to play along because I love when I receive these kind of texts. So I said, how can I help? Said that, I need you to go to a particular place and get some iCards or whatever type of cards, and said that you must give me the code. I said, how much do you need? They said that text back, 400 card, which is supposed to be value $800. So at that time, what I did was said to them, I said, sure, I can help you, but please let me know how was the conference. Now, I know that individual was in a conference at the time.
Right.
So I asked that question. So I never received a text. So I think
they knew
that I caught on to them as well, or what was going on. So when we look at the numbers that you mentioned, we notice that it is not just ransom, but it's also revenue loss to a company. And when we see this stuff is being lost to a company, that means that it hits the company bottom line.
Right.
So this is why we are using the word cyber economics, because it says that the cost of breaches, either it could be direct. You could talking about forensics that you have to go through to try to discover these breaches. You have managed incident response, because when you manage incident response, your quick response will tell you exactly how you will be able to recover anything if you can. We're also talking about system recovery if they would have just infect your system with some virus, or even if they would have encrypt your data, right, and you can't gain access to your data, and you have to go back through all of these different things. So all of these different expense, and then we have the indirect expense, where we have talking about reputational loss, we're talking about loss of business, we're talking about all the different things that can affect your business from an indirect perspective.
Right. And I think my favorite part to add on to that is we all know about regulators.
That's correct.
And so we cannot forget that when you don't adhere to cybersecurity rules, you have regulators that actually have fines for those particular things. And then we know that as cybersecurity professionals, there are global regulators. So we have global ones like the GDPR, CCPA, and so much more that actually has strict rules and even frameworks that we have to follow all the time. And then we look at, there's some here right in our Caribbean, but also in the Bahamas as well.
But when we also look at these rules, and for a company have to remember that too, is that their future cost of breaches is critical, and really, because if they have cyber insurance, which I recommend that person should have cyber insurance, that the cost of that premium will escalate. So here it is that you have a cyber incident, and in fact, some insurance company will not pay if they realize that you was negligent, especially if the board did not exercise due diligence and due care. So we can see some of that. So when you mention the regulatory fines and all of that, we realize that a lot of those regulatory fines can be massive. They just can be stuff that can cripple a business.
Right. And they are very steep too, because when you look at the general data protection regulation, you see that fines can reach up to 4% of a company's annual global turnover, or 20 million, whichever is higher. And then we see that major tech companies have faced fines in the hundreds of millions under these regulations. And then you go into sector-specific regulations. So we see, like in the financial institution, they face scrutiny from regulatory bodies such as SEC, USA. We see the Central Bank, the Securities Commission, Insurance Commission, and then we see Data Commissioner of the Bahamas, and there's so more. And if you're in a healthcare organization or the healthcare sector, we all know about HIPAA, and we know that the goal for HIPAA is that everyone data is private. So therefore, if you can't go in the elevator and talk about patient's information right there, and don't you think that if a cyber attack happened, wouldn't it be a lot of money? Like, it's actually tens of thousands of dollars per violation. So what I'm trying to say is that there are rules and regulations for you that you have to protect. And like I say, HIPAA is one of the ones that you hear about common as well. And it's serious.
Totally agree, because I also want to let our listeners know that, look, your data is your data. When you go to a doctor, when you ask for your data, they should give you your data, your information that is yours. They should not argue with you, tell you come back later, or put you through a rigmarole. The law says that that's still your data here in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in the data privacy law. So you have to ensure that you protect your data if you want to know how they are protecting your data. So when you look at the cost just of fining, just for the fine through these regulations and all of these different global regulations, we can say that you might as well call that an entire compliance life cycle. So we are managing a compliance life cycle.
Exactly. So when it comes to organization, they must have a budget for compliant costs. So they have to understand it has to be substantial but predictable. So implementing encryption and access controls, security policies, hiring specialized cybersecurity professionals, even legal staff. There's so much things that you can do. Auditing. We know that auditing is important. Pen testing, always testing your security controls, because we know that once you implement your security controls, whether it be physical or digital, you need to make sure that you are testing them constantly so that they can be able to know if it's working. Do we need to implement something new? All of that.
So when we look at cyber economics, essentially it frames this choice of investment. You want to be able to predict, not get caught, without you having the stuff in place to try to protect your environment or protect your stuff. Because when you have a cyber breach, in fact, that could be catastrophic for some companies. I have seen many companies went out of business because of cyber breaches, because they did not do what it was necessary. In fact, I have seen because of cyber breaches, there were persons who actually spent time in jail because
Right.
they did not do what they're supposed to do. So board need to understand how important it is for them to be able to manage this cyber risk. If you're on the board, remember, you take on the responsibility. And if you take on that responsibility, it's not about collecting any funds. It is about ensuring the fact that everything within that company is actually fine, including that cyber risk. And also, many companies have suffered lawsuit because of cyber.
Yes, it's not something that you can say I can put to the side and then do it for later. It's very important, and like we said, like cyber attacks are going all the time, so you have to make sure. And I think it's clear. It's clear to say, and when we look at the math is adding up and saying that the cost of prevention will always be less. It will literally be less. Just focus on trying to implement cybersecurity infrastructure so that you can be able to not have to pay so much for the later side when a cyber attack happens. Honestly.
That's so true. And when you say that the math is adding up, we usually hear the mathy.
Yes, the math is mathing.
This was the time where, we would have say, math.
Clock it. Math is mathing.
Clock it. That's a powerful message on this end when we look at the word, when we look at cyber economics. It is truly a language of business. It is truly a language of managing everything within your organization to ensure that your organization continue to run smoothly and be able to protect, because guess what? There are persons out there who wants what you have. That's your data.
Right.
And in fact, there are other persons' data information that you have to protect and who can cause you a lot of stress.
That's the next thing too, because like you have someone else, is you not only have your data, but you have to now take responsibility on protecting other people's data.
That is so true, Cybergirl. And with that, Cybergirl, I think we now can bring this whole podcast in, but cyber economics and allowing persons to know how difficult it is and how they ought to manage what it is pertaining to cybersecurity. So, Cybergirl, do you have any more tips for our listeners that you would like to throw out?
I think the main thing is to understand that cybersecurity is important. It's not just an IT problem. What I like to say is cybersecurity is a national security.
That's correct.
Which means that everyone has to step in and everyone has to understand how serious it is. Just how, for instance, your physical security, if you have a gate,
true.
Or if you have a door to protect your things, you need to have those things in place to protect your data. Data sovereignty is important.
That's true.
Protecting your data and understanding that people want your data. They sell it on the dark web. They want your data and they're making money off it. So it's up to you to understand that you have to protect your data and to stop from people from trying to use that data to make money off of that. And it's so much more. Or just like identity theft. It's so many things that you can use with your data. So yeah, it's important. It's a responsibility and you have to actually take on that responsibility and get the job done.
And with that, Cybergirl, we have come to the end of this podcast. Thank you for joining us. And we will be back next time with another episode about the podcast to keeping you safe inside the digital world. Cybergirl?
Yes, and remember always to stay safe out there, and remember that securing your data is securing your future.
Thank you.